Hi everybody, it's Josh Kuryevsky here with Jeff Patton. Jeff is a veteran agilist who really focuses on the product side, the people and product side of Agile. And he and I go way back. We worked together briefly at a .com in San Francisco in 2000.
Yeah, a long time ago.
And we are in Sydney, Australia together at the YOW conference. Been here together for almost 2 weeks now.
Yeah, we're getting tired. This is the second week. We've been to Melbourne, Brisbane, now here.
Yes. So let's chat a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by your message. You are a really early pioneer of Agile, but you were doing things that we now aspire to do
Yeah.
years ago. Can you tell us about your early background in this?
Yeah. Well, so before this, we were talking about, well, I don't know, we spent a lot of time relearning things we already knew. I used to build software for retailers, for brick and mortar
Sure.
retailers, the point of sale stuff all the way to the back office merchandising stuff. And a long time ago, our company was small and our software was a little jankety. So when we released software, it was when we were rolling it out to a chain of retailers, it was a convention to roll it out to a pilot store, one or two stores
To begin with.
and then as a convention, we showed up and stood behind people while they used our software. We were there the whole day. The store opened at 9 o'clock. We were there before they opened up. We were there when they opened up the store. We stood behind them while they worked. We were there until they closed the store later in the day. And it was me. It was other developers, and we stood behind people while they worked. Now,
So you believed in rapid feedback? Is that what you're telling me?
No,
Back in the early 90s?
we didn't call it rapid feedback. We called it being there in case things went to hell in a handbag, and sometimes they did.
Right.
But the really big takeaway, I can remember, so this is the story we were talking about before this. I can remember situations we were there, and look, if you've ever. We were talking about this before. If you've ever watched anybody use anything you've made before,
I have.
it's horrifying the first time because you feel so good about this product, but then you watch them use it and they struggle or they make mistakes or they use it in weird jankety ways and they don't even think it's weird the way that they're using it. I remember
You cringe inside, don't
yes,
you?
I remember doing many hours worth of cringing and getting back and having us talk about it and said, this is just awful. This is not the way we want it to be. And I can remember us staying very late at night working on this stuff. And I can remember people being super motivated to make this better.
Yes.
Had nothing to do with backlogs or goals. We didn't call our extra work to make it better scope creep, or we didn't. It was us being motivated, us caring.
To make a far better experience for your end users.
So we were So we were talking because I gave the talk I'm giving at YOW is how to fix product ownership in agile development. One of the things talked about is this empathy thing.
Yes.
Is how we don't take developers out or team members out, and we don't put them with. This isn't a convention. We aren't. Look, you can be practicing Scrum and you can try and maximize velocity. And look, if you take time away from writing code and go actually watch people work, it's gonna hurt. In theory, it could hurt your velocity. In practice,
It's way better use of your time.
yeah, it's a way better use of your time, and you probably know this. You've probably seen this. Developers who care about what they're doing outperform developers who don't care.
Oh, yeah.
2 to 1.
Yes.
So oddly, taking that time away, it really improves the performance.
So if you really want to, so what you're saying is if you really want to improve performance, get the developers out observing the actual users of the software because they're going to get totally motivated to make it a far better product.
Absolutely. I'm sure you saw this. You shipped an e-learning product, and I'm sure you learned lots of horrifying lessons along the way. And
Yes.
I'm sure that those. You learn those lessons best. You get the most insight from actually talking to and watching people use your product.
I'll never forget just watching someone in a usability evaluation in our office completely miss a 3-minute video that we had made. He didn't realize there was a video on the page. Literally didn't realize there was a video there that we'd spent 3 or 4 days making to make him awesome, and he just clicked to the next page, and my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
And believe me, immediately, it was the next hour, the next day, we were making that page far more explicit, that there's a video here, click here to play the video, big giant, triangle. So yeah, exactly, it resonates what you're saying, that if you observe the actual customer using your product, it's going to motivate you to build a far better product.
One of the things that came up, and it's funny, we talked a little bit about what we're gonna talk about, but I'm gonna jump right into one of the things we talked about, and we both bristle at, is the term or the concept of product owner. Now, actually, in my company, it took years before they actually understood what a product manager was, but they ultimately adopted the term product manager, and I don't know if that term is awesome or perfect, but product owner feels weird to me, because one of the big concepts for us, for me and my teams, is we as a team were responsible for the success of this product. A person didn't own the product. We owned the product.
The team.
The team did.
The whole team.
We felt
Beautiful.
accountable for it.
Yes.
It was sort of important that we have a strong leader. It was be super important that we understood how our product fit into the strategic vision of the strategy and vision of our company.
Absolutely.
And it was important that we have a leader. It wasn't a free for all here, but there was a strong sense of ownership. Look, I was the team leader. It was my job to make sure that everybody felt ownership, not to take ownership away from them. And sometimes if I do all the deciding what the product does, I'm stealing ownership.
Right.
And that's what gets weird about common agile practice sometimes.
Interesting.
The product owner is supposed to be the decider, for me, I evaluate,
You call it passionate product ownership, right? That's the name of your course.
yes, and so when I teach, I teach product ownership courses. Look, it's not printed big on my business card. It's not on my website, but I am a certified Scrum trainer. I only teach product ownership. I don't teach the CSM stuff. I only teach the product ownership stuff because I can teach it the way I want to. There isn't a test you have to take to prove it.
And it can change. It can improve.
And I give the guidance that I don't want just people in the PO role to be there. I want product owners. I want product designers. I need agile coaches or scrum masters to be there, and I need engineers. Especially the senior engineers to be there, because the ownership is a team responsibility. It isn't an individual's responsibility.
Right. Wonderful.
Now, that said, I say that, but I don't get an even mixture of people like that, but in classes. But I at least leave people with the idea that this is important. That they go back and put this.
So
in place.
Team ownership of the product outcome. Would that be one of the ways?
Of course.
Say it?
Yeah.
And so
it's yes. One of the, I can remember working with a company. I'm going to leave their name out
No
of
worries,
this
no
because
worries.
I can remember them. You said team ownership of the outcome, and it made me think of something. I remember sitting with this company, and they're at a stand-up meeting. This is a small team working hard. They're really predictable. They have continuous delivery. They're delivering. They've got a product that is consumer facing, so they can release features multiple times in a sprint or an iteration, in a cycle. And I can remember them at the stand-up meeting being super depressed. Any other team would be super thrilled that they were shipping as predictably as these people were. But cards went to the end of a task board into a shipped column, and they would tag the things that were shipped. But right next to the card were the metrics that they were tracking on that story. And next to that were, in whiteboard ink, were them writing the measurable outcomes, the metrics that came off of that. The things stayed on the board for as long as it took them to measure, as long as it took them to sort of reflect on how well this thing would be used. And so things stayed on the board a few weeks after they measured it, and they talked about this in stand-up meetings. And they learned the horrifying thing that most people learned, that you ship stuff and people don't use it, or it has negative results. It has a negative outcome. Or just like the thing you just described. Hey, if you would ship that feature for the video and you actually instrumented it so you could see how many people played videos, and you shipped it and you watch the metrics every day and you notice nobody's playing that video, that would be sort of depressing.
Horrifying, actually.
And look, if this is now we're in the measurable outcome thing. This is why the outcome, the metrics.
Yeah.
There's an old friend of mine that says data is exhaust, not fuel. Data will tell you what people did, but not why. And if you put those two things together, if you watch somebody work, then you can start to figure out what the problems are and solve them. Anyway, the team being so I watched this team be depressed because they weren't getting the outcomes they expected, and
Interesting.
I'm going all different directions. I have a slide.
That's fine. No, I like that.
Remember the old mom expression, the "if you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about" expression?
Look, no, I don't actually.
Don't. Your mom never said that to you?
I never heard that one.
Yeah,
I'm always learning.
There's an old, maybe it's a bad mom expression or it's a bad dad expression. If you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll tell that to agile teams or teams. If you keep worrying about delivering stuff on time, look, when you start measuring whether people are actually using what you deliver, you're going to have something bigger to cry about.
Oh yeah. So I so that's big, huge believer in usage measurements and all that. Like that's just, you've got to be doing that, folks. Now, you said something to me on this trip that I found fascinating, and I love this. A lot of people will say, the reason we have a product owner is because we don't want design by committee. But you mentioned a certain woman you learned a phrase from.
A lady I know named Lisa Reichelt.
Lisa Reichelt.
She has, you can find her blog, her online blog is disambiguity.com or disambiguity if you look for her. And I met her when she was with the UK. You ever order business cards from Moo?
I've heard of Moo. Yes, I haven't. But
she did a lot of the design for that.
Oh, beautiful stuff.
She did a lot of design for a couple other things, but she helped the UK government do design. We're here in Australia, and she took over she was running design and research and part of the leadership of what is the DTA, or the Digital Transformation Authority for the Australian government. And I met her this morning, and she just took over design research for Atlassian.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm way off track, but the quote of hers is that design by community is not design by committee. It's that we include everybody. We want everyone's opinion. We want people to understand. We want them to weigh in on things. But at the end of the day, someone has to decide.
Yes.
And someone is sort of accountable. So there's this weird tension between being the owner that strips ownership away from teams and being the owner that collaborates with teams, being maybe it's a leadership versus ownership thing.
Yeah, I love that. So in the leadership model, there is product ownership, not necessarily the product owner, and there's this design by community versus design by committee.
Yes,
actively seeking.
It's funny. So I have this. The title of my class used to be passionate product ownership. Did you say that?
Yes. Has that changed?
I just did passionate product leadership.
Oh, I love that. Even better. Better.
It's because of conversations like this with you and other people that I'm kind of getting allergic to the term owner. I don't want it.
I love it. Leadership is really where it's at. So, and we can all be leaders. We don't have to have one leader. People can lead. An intern at Facebook decided to try something out, and it turned out it took down Facebook. It was a defect that he tried.
You were telling me this story.
Yeah, Sheryl Sandberg told this story that he basically thought, let me see how Facebook responds to a defect. How does it deal with it? And inadvertently took Facebook down for 30 minutes. Yeah. They ended up hiring that intern because he was consistent with their values of being bold and having impact. He just went about his experiment in a kind of unsafe way. So, okay. But, that is...
Maybe we need to talk about modern agile and safety, or what does that extend?
So we're, here's our little sticker here, and these things here, I mean, a lot of...
Still waiting for the modern agile drinking game.
Well, you know what? We're getting closer because we just made some cork... what are they? The cork things you put your drinks on.
The coasters.
Coasters. We just made coasters. They'll be coming soon.
So those aren't big enough for coasters as they are. You need a slightly bigger.
But so we were talking as well about empathy and productivity, and so I think what you're saying to me is, what I'm hearing is, empathy's huge. You got to be, if you're going out there and talking to your customers, you're going to have much more empathy. If the team is able to do it, they're going to get motivated to make improvements. Here's a question for you. You said this earlier. What happens when 2, 3, 4 different customers, you do all this empathy, And then you get all these crazy different ideas.
Yeah.
And you have too much. Who do you listen to? Listen to customer A, customer B? Is it the customer who pays me the most money? How do you deal with that?
What did you do?
Well, what do I do when I build a product? I wait until I hear the same, more of the same thing coming from more customers, and then say, okay, fine. Now I've heard it several times. So if it's a unique request, I'm a little bit weary. That's a unique request. Let me hear it from a few others. That's one thing. That's one answer. My other answer would be, I don't always listen to the customer either. No. Sometimes it's, again, like, what do we need to build to make the customer awesome, or at least what we think would be awesome? Yeah. What can we try out rapidly, prototype, and see what they would like? And part of that's just thinking, about their unarticulated needs.
So yes, thinking about their unarticulated needs, and there's a friend of mine says that customers don't know what they want until they see it, and even then we're not so sure. And that sounds a little harsh. Again, I think I said earlier in this conversation, we've all bought products that we don't use.
Oh my!
And we predicted that we would use it. Yes. We imagined when we thought about that product, we bought the product that we would use it. People ask for features all the time that they predict they will use and don't. Actually, in practice, we're pretty fallible, and there's your goal is to don't give people what they want, but give them what they need. And you listen to a lot of customers, and there's a couple different tricks. There's a friend of mine that when people ask for features, there's a friend of mine that taught me years ago something she called the magic question. That look, if you ask for a feature, they say you don't say why. That's puts people on the back step. You say that sounds great. If you had that, then what would you do? How would you use that feature? What would you be doing differently? And then they'll describe for you how they imagine their future. That gives you a lot of insight on what kind of problems they're solving. And then the next follow-on question is, that sounds awesome. And this is a little bit of jujitsu. You're kind of moving their energy forward. You say, that sounds awesome. What happens today? And then they'll tell you about how things suck today. Now, look, we've got the feature they asked for, but more importantly, we have how they imagine the world being better. We have what sucks today. And when you start to see a bunch of features a bunch of customers that ask for different things, you play that game with them, you start to see some commonalities of problems. You start to hear how they, oftentimes I've had multiple times people start to describe how they would use that feature in the future, and they catch their own bad logic. Oh, that wouldn't work now that I think of it.
Right. So you can invalidate it relatively easily.
Then you can go into what gets called co-creation sometimes. You say, when they describe how things are going bad today, then you can start to play, what about if we did this? Would that be better? What if we did this? And you turn this into a richer conversation. But love it. That doesn't answer your question. What do you do if three people want at the end of the day, the hard product choice you're making isn't what features to put in your product. It's what customers you're going to support.
Right.
And there's the old...
That's strategy too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's strategy. That's the heart of strategy. Isn't what features, it's what markets you're addressing. And I'll joke with people in classes that everybody's mother should have told them, you can't please everybody. If your product strategy is to try and please everybody, you're in trouble.
You have a lot of mother wisdom and stuff like that.
I didn't realize that until you said. I'll have to give that some serious thought.
That's
maybe
good.
Something weird or wrong. I don't know.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
I don't know.
We're getting close to our time here, but I wanted to mention something I thought you said that was really brilliant in your keynote the other day, which is that backlogs really need to contain things besides just features, right?
Oh, yeah.
What do they need to contain? What does a good backlog look like?
I'm going to run out of time here.
All right. Can you say it succinctly?
I can't say anything succinctly.
Well, I'll say it for you. I told you. You said it.
What did I say?
You said assumptions.
Yeah. Well,
risks.
I talked about three kinds of backlogs that are really important to me. There's the first thing is lots of ideas or options or things that we could possibly do that make things better. And if I pick up and start working with any one of those things, then I want to mutate. I want to talk about what are all the assumptions, what are all the risks, what are all the questions I've got.
Yes.
And that's what we use experimentation and testing to do. And then once I'm really committed to building something that I can release into production, and I need to start building production-ready code, then there's a backlog that's composed of more traditional user stories. I'll end up calling that a release backlog because those are the things that I'm confident I can release.
Yes.
That first backlog of options, that's all the crap that's at the bottom of most people's Jira backlogs. But I like separating that out because I don't like consider that I may or may not do those things. They may or may not be good ideas, and I don't want to. It's mental weight for me to manage those things. And then again, I want to start drawing attention to these things I need to learn, or I'll talk about a learning backlog.
A learning backlog, yeah. So then there's three backlogs. There's the release backlog, which is when you already know you want to build it.
Yeah.
There's the learning backlog.
Or there's the learning backlog, and that's for the things I'm working on.
That you have
trying to decide
learning.
whether, and I hopefully I've only got one or two of those things that I'm actively working on, trying to figure out whether I should or shouldn't build them. And then the biggest backlog becomes this. Sometimes gets called an options backlog, an opportunity backlog. These are all the ideas, the things that I could potentially build. There's a secret fourth backlog that's I usually refer to as the output minimizer. It's the trash can. It's where you put ideas if you decide not to build them. It's a backlog because if you kill an idea, you know from experience that it's going to come back. Someone's going to ask about it. You want to be able to pull it back and say, okay, this is what we talked about and we learned last time we did this. What's changed?
And if you're not killing ideas, probably that's a problem, right? That backlog ought to have items in it, right? You should be killing ideas.
And it's nice to look. We spend a lot of time. We're wrong a lot. We spend a lot of time proving you're wrong. Hey, if you you got to celebrate the stuff you kill. That's work. That's effort. That's a different kind of done. There's done, which is the stuff we ship, and there's done, which are the ideas that we kill. So that's that.
Very, very good. Awesome. Well, thank you for stopping by, talking to me, sharing your wisdom with the community watching today.
It's good to be here. And thanks for sharing this. Thanks for simplifying, simplifying as it should be the agile world for the rest of us.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And see you all later.
All right.